Hey guys, okay, so picture this. You walk into any McDonald's anywhere in the world, and there's this one burger that everyone knows, right? The Big Mac. Like, it doesn't matter if you're in Tokyo, London, or right here. People see those golden arches and immediately think, two all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese. Am I the only one who can recite that jingle in my sleep? But seriously, have you ever wondered how this random burger became literally the most iconic fast food item on the planet? Because the story is actually wild. So today we're diving deep into the Big Mac phenomenon. We're talking about how a simple idea from Pittsburgh changed fast food forever, why millions of people are basically obsessed with it, and honestly, the psychology behind why we keep coming back for more. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at a Big Mac the same way again. Okay, so it all started back in 1967. And get this! It wasn't even McDonald's corporate that came up with the idea. There was this franchisee named Jim Delegati, who owned a McDonald's in Uniontown, Pennsylvania. And Jim was smart, you know? He noticed that other burger chains in Pittsburgh were crushing it, with bigger burgers aimed at adults, while McDonald's was still focusing on those smaller patties. So Jim's looking around thinking, we need something bigger, something that screams, this is for grown-ups who are actually hungry. And here's where it gets interesting. McDonald's corporate was not having it initially. They were like, Jim, stick to the program. But this guy was persistent. He kept pushing, kept experimenting, and finally created what he called a double burger, the Big Mac. The crazy part? When it first launched in 1967, a Big Mac cost just 45 cents. That's like $4 in today's money. Now we're looking at around $5.69 on average. But here's the thing, it worked. People went absolutely crazy for it, so much so that McDonald's rolled it out nationwide in 1968. And the rest, as they say, is history. Now let's talk about what actually makes this thing so special. Because it's not just any burger, right? We're talking about a very specific architecture here. You've got your sesame seed bun, but not just any bun, it's got 3 layers. Then there are 2 1.6-ounce beef patties, American cheese, lettuce, onions, pickles, and that mysterious Big Mac sauce that everyone tries to recreate at home. And can we talk about that sauce for a second? McDonald's has been so secretive about it for decades. People have literally tried to reverse engineer it. And while we know it's basically a variation of Thousand Island, dressing with some mayo and sweet pickle relish, there's something about the McDonald's version that just hits different. It's like they've got some food scientists in a lab, somewhere perfecting the exact ratios that make our brains go, yes, more please. All right, so let's talk about just how massive this thing has become, because the numbers are honestly insane. McDonald's serves about 550 million Big Macs every year in the US alone. That's more than 1 Big Mac per person annually, which is wild when you think about it. And here's what's really interesting about who's eating them. The largest group of McDonald's customers are people between 25 and 34, making up about 28.5% of users, followed by the 18-24 age group at around 21.6%. So we're basically the core demographic here. As for gender, it's pretty evenly split, but slightly more men tend to go for burgers like the Big Mac, about 53.2% male versus 46.8% female customers overall. But what really blew my mind is how this varies by region. In countries where beef consumption is already high, like the US and Australia, Big Mac sales are through the roof. But even in places where the local food culture is completely different, the Big Mac has somehow become this universal symbol of American fast food culture. So why did this particular burger become such a cultural phenomenon? I mean, there are tons of burgers out there, right? Well, it turns out there's some serious psychology at play here. First, there's what food scientists call the bliss point, that perfect combination of fat, salt, and sugar that basically hijacks our reward systems. The Big Mac hits this perfectly with the sauce, the beef fat, the saltiness of the pickles and cheese, and even a slight sweetness from the bun and sauce. But beyond that, there's the familiarity factor. McDonald's figured out something genius: consistency. Whether you're having a terrible day in New York or celebrating in Paris, that Big Mac tastes exactly the same. There's comfort in that predictability, especially for our generation that grew up with these brands. And then there's the marketing genius of it all. That jingle: 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. It's been stuck in our heads for decades. It's not just advertising, it's become part of pop culture. The Big Mac isn't just a burger anymore, it's a reference point. Economists literally use the Big Mac index to compare currencies across countries. Like, how crazy is that? And speaking of cultural impact, let's be real about how people actually perceive the Big Mac today. It's complicated, right? On one hand, it represents this peak of American fast food innovation. The idea that you can create something so universally appealing that it transcends borders and cultures. But on the other hand, we're living in an era where people are way more conscious about health and sustainability. The Big Mac has become almost symbolic of everything people criticize about fast food. High calories, processed ingredients, the whole industrial food system. Yet here's what's fascinating. Despite all the health consciousness, despite all the gourmet burger joints popping up everywhere, the Big Mac continues to dominate. It's like we have this love-hate relationship with it. We know it's not the healthiest choice, but there's something about that specific combination of flavors and textures that keeps us coming back. So where is McDonald's going with the Big Mac? This is actually super interesting because they're walking this fine line between preserving what makes it iconic and adapting to changing consumer demands. They've been experimenting with things like the Grand Mac and Mac Jr., basically playing with size variations. They've also been testing plant-based versions in some markets, which is wild to think about. Like, can you imagine a plant-based Big Mac? Would it still be a Big Mac? But here's what I think is really smart about their approach. They're not messing with the core product. The classic Big Mac stays exactly the same, because they know that's their gold mine. Instead, they're creating variations and limited-time offerings that let them experiment without alienating the die-hard fans. They're also investing heavily in sustainability, working on things like better sourcing for their beef, more environmentally friendly packaging, and reducing their carbon footprint. Because let's face it, our generation cares about this stuff, and McDonald's knows they need to evolve or risk becoming irrelevant. What absolutely blows my mind is how the Big Mac has become this global language of sorts. I was reading about how in some countries, the Big Mac is actually considered a premium product because of the price point relative to local wages. In others, it's just everyday fast food. But everywhere you go, people know what it is. It's like McDonald's accidentally created this universal cultural touchstone. There are people who've never been to America, but know exactly what a Big Mac is supposed to taste like. That's not just successful marketing. That's cultural penetration on a level that most brands can only dream of. And the crazy part is how it's influenced other fast food chains. Everyone's trying to create their own Big Mac killer, their own iconic burger that could compete. But none of them have quite captured that same magic combination of simplicity, consistency, and cultural relevance. So here we are, almost 60 years later, and the Big Mac is still going strong. It's survived health food trends, economic recessions, the rise of fast casual dining, and even a global pandemic. And honestly, I think it'll probably outlast most of us. Whether you love it or hate it, you have to respect the impact. Jim Delegati probably had no idea that his bigger burger, for adults, would become one of the most recognizable food items in human history. But that's the thing about cultural phenomena. They often start with someone just trying to solve a simple problem. What do you guys think? Are you Team Big Mac, or do you think it's overrated? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see what actually happens to your body when you eat a Big Mac, hit that subscribe button, because that's exactly what we're covering in our next video. Trust me, the science behind it is actually fascinating.